because slaves were property. Your wealth was measured by how much slaves you had. And so when he walked over with about 980, that's a whole lot. And of course, what he do would take mortgages in people's plantations they can't pay. Well, of course, he got it. So he really emerged as a very big fella. But he had the most slaves, and of course was one of the biggest guys.
It's strange that because you're mentioning Burnley. Is it Robert Burnley? Right? William Burnley.
William Harding Burnley.
William Harding Burnley, and for a lot of Trinidadians, they would not be, and Tobagonians, they would not be necessarily familiar with that.
No, that would not. I like a nice language. Would not be necessary. No, they know him.
Yeah.
As simple as that. Because we don't study our history, and of course, he would not. I suspect he would have fallen out of history, and there's only some, I guess, I wouldn't say history buff, but someone trying to understand his history. For example, I was just in London, I guess about a month or two ago, and another major book came out, a fellow called Samuel Taylor, who was the biggest plantation holder in Jamaica. And so people who are concerned right now, the big studies right now in a place called UCL, which is probably the fourth largest or most important university in the world, they're doing something called slave legacies. All these guys made a lot of money, and of course, what happened to the money? As you would remember, tomorrow is
Friday.
We're going to launch the book at UWI, and so Hilary Beckles, who is in fact the Vice Chancellor of the University of Western, will be doing a review of the book and so on. But Hilary, and to some degree myself, we've been associated with a group that talks about the legacies of slavery. In other words, people made all this money. What has happened to the money now? And so the University of Glasgow, as just today also the Southern Convention in the States, declared, we made all this money from slavery, and the money from slavery supported a lot of institutions. The University of Glasgow, we had a guy like Adam Smith, the great economist, who was the rector there, or we call it probably the principal. They had slave money. Even William Burnley's money, because he had family in Scotland and so on. When he died, his kids was in Scotland. Money from that went towards making the University of Glasgow. So we would have heard about him, but now I think that this studies of slave monies, and a lot of people like, Yale, in the United States, Yale and Brown and all of those institutions are saying, yo, you know what? We profited from slave money. And now we have to give back. The whole question of reparations in terms of reparative justice. So that is becoming very popular now. Even Cameron, the past president, the past prime minister of England, his family lived off, and he's still enjoying the benefits of slave monies. So I wouldn't say it's becoming popular, but it's certainly becoming interesting. So more people are looking at the slave masters. A guy called James Lamont, the second largest slaveholder. Again, another guy from Scotland, another colleague of mine from the University of Glasgow has done a whole study on him. So it's becoming kind of popular to go back. But normally we would not know. We had something called the Burnley Club. I know we had a Burnley Club in Tunapuna. But the
Athletic Club.
Athletic Club. Yes. Oh, God, you're going back.
I remember.
I tickling the memory. Yes. And Mr. Clark. You remember Clark? Mr. Clark.
Was it not Ross?
Anybody from Tunapuna, Tiger, no Clark. I don't remember his first name. And he had a bike, but he had all the other runners coming from Burnley. And of course, the practice on the Burnley field, just where Burnley lived, was a big field. Pusachong.
Ellis Puchang.
Oh, God, I know. Yes. So Ellis Puchang is from the Canterbury. Well, he wasn't from Canterbury. He came back and began to work for the plantation. That time, those entities realized they had some sort of community responsibility. So people like Eddie Hart and all those guys played under Ellis Pusachang. So at that time at Orange Grove, again, they had that sort of the element of some sense of community involvement. So all of them, so people know, as I said, Burnley, the Burnley Club. I'm not too sure if it's named after him, but certainly you know. But people, the name Burnley would not ring a bell. That's point one. And point two, we are not particularly concerned about our history. In terms, if I ask you, for example, the fellow to help everybody from the PNM, he died and whatever. He could dead there. So who's Eric Williams? I know people know Eric Williams. Who's Larry Nicholas Constantine? You should know Constantine is. Who's Constantine? So we're not a people who are very much concerned about our past. That's why our future is imperiled.
The issue of Mr. Burnley and the connection you made to the University of Glasgow, because that was in the media recently.
Oh yes, a big story.
Yeah, but the University of Glasgow and there was a rumor, let's call it a rumor, that UE was getting a certain amount of money from the University
Yeah,
of
200,
Glasgow.
200, I think, million pounds.
200
Yes,
million
that's
pounds.
still true.
Yeah.
And I spoke with Sir Hilary about this, is that they have a memorandum of understanding, and at the time that the Jamaica Gleaner broke the story, and Jamaica was very important because Jamaica suffered horrendously from slavery. We never suffered as horrendously as Jamaica. They were very impetuous and very happy to have the announcement that they've come to agreement, but it hasn't been finally signed. But we are going to get, and not just in terms of education, for health, the different ways to repair, which reparation is to repair the damage. But yes, that's in the offering, and I was told by the end of the year it should really be signed. But a lot of these institutions are in fact understanding that they made. I mean, take Oxford, Codrington College. You know Codrington College, Barbados, where they trained the priests and all that stuff. That was owned by a slave, but he also, the slave money went to build parts of Oxford, and they now also have to give back money. When they say roads must fall, so the question of reparative justice is a very important issue. In fact, my friend Sat, you know Sat Miraj?
Vaguely.
The fellow from
We've interviewed him before.
no, they're like my friend, I think. But Sat called me. I spoke to Sat 2 days ago. He said, "Boy, you're writing about everybody getting reparation." You know, there's a big conference in Johannesburg in which they said that even the Indian indentures need to get reparation too. I said, "But I was in South Africa. I know the conference in Johannesburg, so we're going to talk about that at some point." But everybody's recognizing the fact. I mean, the Indians were treated extraordinarily bad. I mean, it was over sort of semi-slavery when the streets, I think one of my chapters talks about that. On the streets, I mean, they were dying and so on. Indians were treated just as badly, almost as badly. And they too, as he's quite really, we have not given much thought to that because we talk about the Africans and slavery. But we don't talk about the indented laborship because they were brought here to replace the blacks and, of course, suffered. And by the way, Burnley, in 1813 was the first man that said you should bring Indians here to replace black people.